Oh, Jesus! Yes!
The streets of Jerusalem were bustling with the usual activity, the air thick with the scent of incense from nearby markets and the rhythmic chatter of people going about their daily routines. But on this day, something extraordinary unfolded, something that would leave the world forever changed. It began subtly, with whispers and strange glimmers in the sky. The sky, usually a serene blue, started to glow with a brilliance that seemed both earthly and divine. The light grew more intense, as if the heavens were opening. Then, as if commanded by some divine force, a hush fell over the city. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. In that moment, Jesus Christ appeared, accompanied by a host of angels. The figure of Christ was radiant, not in the way ancient paintings had depicted him, but with an overwhelming presence that transcended description. His robes shimmered like liquid gold, the folds moving gently despite the stillness of the air. His face, a mixture of compassion and authority, seemed to shine with the purest light, as if love itself had taken form. The angels that surrounded him were magnificent, each one distinct, with wings that spanned the sky, glowing with ethereal colors never before seen by human eyes. Those who witnessed this event were struck silent, paralyzed by awe and reverence. Many fell to their knees, their souls recognizing the profound sanctity of what was unfolding. Some wept without understanding why, while others raised their arms to the heavens in a gesture of worship. The presence of Christ and the angels brought an overwhelming sense of peace, a calm that settled over the chaos of human life, if only for a moment. As Jesus stood before the people of Jerusalem, it became clear that this was not a mere vision or illusion. His presence was tangible, his feet resting on the ground, and yet there was an undeniable sense that he was also of another realm. The air itself seemed to hum with energy, a frequency that resonated with the hearts of those present. The angels, towering and majestic, hovered above, their faces serene, their wings fluttering lightly, as if held in place by an invisible hand. In the crowd, there were no distinctions between the faithful and the skeptical. Those who had once doubted, those who had scoffed at the idea of miracles, found themselves equally overwhelmed by the sheer reality of what they were witnessing. Some felt an instant conviction in their hearts, a recognition that the moment they had read about in ancient texts had come to pass. For others, it was an unanswerable question, a paradox that defied reason, yet no one could deny the undeniable. The event was unlike any other in human history, not because of the spectacle, but because of its implications. This was a moment of pure revelation, a reminder that the divine is not something far removed from human existence, but something that can manifest within it. The appearance of Jesus and the angels in Jerusalem was not just a sign for the city or even for the religious faithful, it was a sign for all humanity. Time itself seemed to slow down as Jesus raised his hand, not in judgment, but in blessing. A wave of warmth spread through the crowd, a physical sensation that could only be described as divine love. It was as though every fear, every sorrow, every bit of pain or anger melted away in that single moment. There was no need for words. The presence of Jesus spoke volumes. The angels, too, were a silent testament to the grandeur of heaven, their luminous forms a reminder of the mysteries of the universe that lay beyond human understanding. Yet, even amidst the overwhelming nature of the event, there was a strange familiarity to it. The figure of Jesus had been present in the hearts and minds of people for millennia, his teachings forming the foundation of countless lives. And now, here he was, not as a symbol or a story, but as a living, breathing reality. His presence was a reminder of the promises made long ago, the fulfillment of prophecies that had echoed through the centuries. The appearance of the angels only heightened the sense of cosmic significance. Their sheer size and magnificence spoke of a world beyond the material, a realm of infinite beauty and harmony. Their eyes seemed to look deep into the souls of those present, not with judgment, but with understanding. It was as if they could see the totality of human experience, the pain, the joy, the struggles, and the victories, and accepted it all with a grace that surpassed human comprehension. For those who were present, this event was nothing short of a divine encounter. It was not merely a religious experience, but a moment that transcended all labels and boundaries. The appearance of Jesus and the angels shattered the confines of belief systems, reaching into the very core of what it means to be human. In their presence, all divisions melted away. There was no distinction between the devout and the indifferent, between those who had faith and those who had none. In that instant, everyone was united in their awe of the divine. As the moment stretched on, it became clear that this was not an event bound by the ordinary constraints of time. Minutes felt like hours, and yet the experience was timeless. There was a sense that something monumental was unfolding, something that would ripple out into the future, shaping the course of history. The appearance of Jesus and the angels was not just a miracle, it was a declaration, a statement that the divine had not abandoned humanity, that the connection between heaven and earth remained unbroken. The implications of this event were profound. For centuries, humanity had grappled with questions of faith, doubt, and the nature of the divine. Wars had been fought over interpretations of sacred texts, lives had been lost in the pursuit of spiritual truth. And now, here was the answer, standing before the people of Jerusalem in radiant glory. The appearance of Jesus and the angels was a message that transcended religious dogma, a reminder that the divine is not confined to any one tradition or belief system. This event was also a call to action. The presence of Jesus and the angels was not just a passive experience, it was an invitation to live differently. It was a reminder that the principles of love, compassion, and forgiveness that Jesus had preached were not just ideals to strive for, but realities to be lived. The angels, with their otherworldly grace, were a testament to the potential for transformation, a reminder that humanity too could rise to greater heights. There was also a sense that this event was not just for those who were physically present in Jerusalem. In an age of global communication, the news of this miracle would spread quickly, reaching every corner of the earth, and with it would come the undeniable truth that something extraordinary had happened, something that would change the way humanity understood itself and its place in the universe. For the people of Jerusalem, the experience was intensely personal. Some had seen Jesus and the angels with their own eyes, while others had felt their presence in their hearts. But no matter how the event was experienced, it left an indelible mark on the souls of those who witnessed it. Many would never be the same again, their lives forever altered by the knowledge that they had stood in the presence of the divine. Yet, for all its magnitude, the appearance of Jesus and the angels was not an event of fear or intimidation. There was no thunderous voice from the heavens, no apocalyptic visions of destruction. Instead, there was peace. There was a sense of profound calm, a reassurance that no matter the turmoil and chaos of the world, the divine was always present, always watching, always guiding. As the event unfolded, the atmosphere in Jerusalem began to change. The once busy streets grew quiet, as if the city itself was holding its breath. The people who had once been strangers to one another now found themselves connected by a shared experience that defied explanation. There were no words to describe what they had seen and felt, and yet there was a deep understanding that something holy had taken place. In the days that followed, the memory of the event would linger like a dream so vivid and real that it could not be dismissed. People would recount the moment they saw Jesus and the angels, their voices filled with reverence and awe, and even those who had not been present would feel the impact of the event as stories spread like wildfire across the globe. The appearance of Jesus and the angels in Jerusalem was a moment that transcended time and space. It was a miracle, yes, but more than that, it was a revelation. It was a reminder that the divine is not some distant, unreachable force, but something that exists within and around us, always waiting to be acknowledged. And in that acknowledgement, there is the potential for transformation, not just for individuals, but for the whole of humanity. In that single moment, the world stood still, and the boundaries between heaven and earth blurred. The presence of Jesus and the angels was a glimpse into a reality that had always existed but had rarely been seen. It was a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lie within the human spirit, the potential for love, compassion, and unity that exists in every soul. And as the people of Jerusalem looked up at the radiant figures before them, they knew without a doubt that a miracle had happened. As the light began to fade and the figures of Jesus and the angels slowly ascended back into the heavens, there was no sadness, no sense of loss. Instead, there was a profound peace, a deep knowing that this moment was not an ending, but a beginning. The divine had touched the earth, and in doing so, had left an imprint on the hearts of humanity that would last for eternity. Even as Jesus and the angels were no longer visible, their presence lingered, an imprint on the consciousness of everyone who had been there. People began to move again, slowly at first, their eyes wide, their faces pale with wonder. Some began to murmur to one another, tentatively at first, as if to test the reality of what they had seen. The atmosphere was thick with astonishment and awe, as each person attempted to grasp the magnitude of the event they had just witnessed. This was no ordinary day, no ordinary vision, but the fulfillment of millennia of prophecy and hope. There were people from all walks of life present that day, pilgrims who had traveled to Jerusalem from distant lands, scholars who had studied scripture all their lives, vendors and merchants going about their daily business, and even those who had no interest in religion or faith at all. Every person, regardless of their background, was equally shaken by the event. For some, it was the culmination of their deepest beliefs and dreams. For others, it was a confrontation with something they had never considered possible. It didn't matter where they came from or what they believed before. The miracle they had witnessed was undeniable. As the realization of what had happened slowly took hold, emotions overwhelmed many of those present. Tears flowed freely from the eyes of men and women alike, not out of sadness, but from the overwhelming sense of connection to something far greater than themselves. The weight of divine love and peace, the purest form of compassion and grace, had washed over them, leaving behind a lingering warmth that filled their hearts and souls. They knew they had been part of something sacred, something beyond human understanding. In the hours following the event, news spread quickly across the city. Jerusalem, already a crossroads of faith, became the focal point of a global conversation. Stories began to travel by word of mouth, spreading like wildfire across the land. Some claimed to have seen the face of Christ in the sky. Others spoke of hearing music that could only have been from heaven. Every individual had their own personal version of the experience, colored by their own emotions and understanding, yet the core truth remained consistent. Jesus had returned, accompanied by his angels, and had blessed the earth with his presence. By the end of the first day, the streets were filled with pilgrims and townsfolk, gathering in groups, recounting what they had seen. There was no division or discord among them. What had once been a city marked by various factions, political and religious debates, was now unified in the aftermath of this divine visitation. People shared their food and drink, comforted those who were overwhelmed by the experience, and stood in silent reverence when words failed them. Even the most hardened skeptics could not deny the palpable sense of peace that filled the air. Scholars and religious leaders were some of the first to attempt to make sense of the event. In temples, mosques, churches, and synagogues, discussions began immediately. Ancient texts were pulled from dusty shelves, and scriptures were pored over with renewed vigor. As religious leaders of all denominations sought answers to the questions that now dominated the minds of believers everywhere. Could this be the fulfillment of prophecy? Was this the second coming that so many had awaited? Or was this a sign of something even greater to come? The implications of the appearance of Jesus and the angels in Jerusalem were profound. For those within the Christian tradition, the event was seen as the ultimate confirmation of Christ's promises and teachings. It was a validation of everything that had been believed for centuries, that Christ would return to earth and that his return would herald a new age for humanity. The event left no room for doubt, and faith surged in the hearts of millions. But the miracle transcended religious boundaries. The appearance of Jesus, revered by both Christians and Muslims, and the angels, beings recognized in nearly all major faiths, created a moment of unity across belief systems. In synagogues and mosques as well as churches, the event was recognized as a divine moment, though interpreted differently according to each faith. Yet, regardless of the lens through which it was seen, one truth remained. The divine had revealed itself in a way that could not be denied. For some, the return of Jesus was not just a fulfillment of prophecy, but an invitation to re-examine their lives. Many who had drifted away from their faith or who had never believed in any spiritual realm at all found themselves grappling with what they had witnessed. It was not enough to simply see the event as an external occurrence. It demanded internal reflection as well. If Jesus had returned, what did that mean for the world? For individual lives? People began asking themselves questions that had long been ignored in the busyness of daily existence. Questions about their purpose, their morality, their relationships, and their connection to the divine. The experience also brought with it a renewed sense of responsibility. The teachings of Jesus had always emphasized love, compassion, and forgiveness, and now, more than ever, those who had witnessed his return felt a renewed commitment to live by these values. Acts of kindness and charity surged in the days that followed, with people offering aid and support to strangers without hesitation. In the marketplaces, merchants offered food to the hungry, and in homes, neighbors reached out to one another in ways that had been uncommon before. This sense of unity and collective purpose transcended religious and national boundaries, as people from all walks of life felt called to live out the message of love and compassion that Jesus had embodied. The appearance of the angels carried with it a sense of celestial authority and grandeur, reminding humanity that there was a realm far greater than the physical world. These beings, radiant and majestic, evoked a sense of wonder that transcended human understanding. Their silent presence was a testament to the mysteries of the universe, to the unseen forces that guide and protect. For many, their appearance was a reminder of the interconnectedness of all things, a symbol that humanity was not alone in the vastness of creation. The angels brought with them a message of hope, one that assured humanity that they were watched over and that divine assistance was always near. At the heart of the experience, however, was not just the appearance of Jesus and the angels, but the profound peace that had accompanied them. This peace, unlike anything the people of Jerusalem had ever experienced, lingered in the air long after the divine figures had ascended. It was as if the very fabric of the world had been infused with serenity. People moved with a newfound calm, their worries and fears seemingly dissolved in the presence of the divine. This peace was more than an emotion. It was a deep, abiding sense of connection to something greater than themselves. It filled hearts and minds with an unshakable certainty that, despite the troubles and challenges of life, there was a divine plan, and all would ultimately be well. The global reaction to the event was swift. Within hours, news had spread across continents, carried by media outlets, social networks, and word of mouth. The impact of the miracle reached far beyond the borders of Jerusalem. People from every corner of the world, from the smallest villages to the largest cities, began to discuss and reflect upon the significance of what had occurred. Religious leaders from every tradition were called upon to provide insight, while scientists and scholars debated the nature of the event. For many, it was a moment of faith confirmed. For others, a mystery yet to be fully understood. Pilgrims began to flock to Jerusalem in unprecedented numbers. What had long been a city of religious significance now became the epicenter of global attention. People of all faiths and backgrounds sought to come to the place where Jesus and the angels had appeared, hoping to feel even a fraction of the divine peace that had enveloped the city. The atmosphere in Jerusalem, once bustling with the sounds of commerce and activity, transformed into one of quiet reverence. The streets, though crowded with visitors, seemed to vibrate with a shared sense of purpose, as if everyone who had come to the city was united in their search for deeper meaning. In the following days, churches, mosques, synagogues, and temples all around the world began to fill with people seeking solace, understanding, and connection. Prayer services were held across every time zone as humanity collectively reached out to the divine. Even in places where faith had long been considered a personal or private matter, people gathered in public squares, lighting candles, offering prayers, and singing hymns. The world had paused to reflect, to consider the miracle that had taken place and what it meant for the future. As the world grappled with the implications of the event, a transformation began to take place, not only in individuals, but in societies as a whole. Political leaders, often divided by ideology and national interest, found themselves called to a new sense of responsibility. The appearance of Jesus and the angels in Jerusalem had shown, in the clearest possible terms, that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that there was something greater to which all were accountable. This realization began to influence policy discussions, diplomatic efforts, and international relations in unexpected ways. At the grassroots level, people began to look at their own lives and communities with a renewed sense of purpose. There was an outpouring of goodwill that took the form of volunteer work, charity drives, and efforts to heal broken relationships. Families that had been torn apart by misunderstandings or conflict began to reconcile. Parents reached out to estranged children, and siblings who had been divided by old grudges sought each other out in acts of forgiveness. Communities that had long been fractured along religious, racial, or political lines began to come together, inspired by the sense of divine peace that had washed over the earth in the wake of the event. The message of Christ's return wasn't limited to the religiously devout either. Even those who had lived their lives with little or no faith found themselves drawn to the implications of what had happened. Philosophers, agnostics, and secular thinkers began to explore the profound meaning of an event that seemed to transcend the natural order. There were deep conversations in cafes, classrooms, and lecture halls as people grappled with questions of existence, purpose, and morality. What was it about this event that resonated so deeply with humanity? How could the appearance of Jesus and angels in one city affect the consciousness of the entire world? For scientists, the event posed challenges and opportunities. In laboratories and research centers, scholars and experts in physics, astronomy, and metaphysics sought to understand the mechanics of what had occurred. How could an event like this happen? Could there be a scientific explanation for the phenomena that so many had witnessed? The glowing light, the presence of radiant beings, the sense of peace that permeated the atmosphere. These were elements that defied conventional understanding, yet they could not be dismissed. Skeptics in the scientific community were at first inclined to question the reports, but as data poured in from countless eyewitnesses and the emotional and psychological impact of the event became undeniable, even the most rational minds began to consider the possibility that something truly extraordinary had occurred. Some scientists speculated that the event was a manifestation of phenomena not yet understood by modern science. Theories of parallel dimensions, quantum energy fields, and the interplay of consciousness with the universe gained traction as researchers tried to reconcile the physical evidence with the spiritual significance of what had happened. The angels in particular fascinated scholars. What were they? Were they beings of pure energy? Did they exist in a realm beyond human perception, only now revealing themselves to humanity? These questions spurred a new era of scientific inquiry, where the lines between spirituality and science blurred, opening the door to new possibilities and discoveries. The event also had a profound effect on the arts. Musicians, painters, poets, and writers found themselves inspired in ways they had never been before. The appearance of Jesus and the angels stirred the deepest emotions of humanity, and these emotions found expression in new masterpieces of art. Painters sought to capture the ethereal light and majestic beauty of the angels on canvas, creating works that seemed to shimmer with divine energy. Sculptors, inspired by the forms of the celestial beings, crafted statues that seemed almost alive, their wings and robes forever frozen in motion. Musicians composed symphonies and hymns that filled concert halls and churches with melodies that evoked the peace and love that had descended upon the earth. Writers and poets, too, were deeply moved. They used their words to explore the deeper meaning of the event, capturing the sense of awe and reverence that had swept across the globe. New epic poems and spiritual reflections appeared in literary circles, and countless stories emerged, each seeking to make sense of a moment that had fundamentally altered human experience. It wasn't just religious art that bloomed. Even secular artists found themselves compelled to engage with themes of transcendence, unity, and the divine. Political structures, too, began to change. The event had made it clear that the old systems of division, power, and domination were no longer sustainable. Political leaders, many of whom had witnessed or heard of the miraculous event, began to reevaluate their roles and responsibilities. For centuries, governments had been based on structures of control, often motivated by greed or fear. Now, in light of Jesus' return and the appearance of angels, a new wave of thought swept through political institutions. In many countries, leaders began to call for global cooperation on issues that had previously been the subject of contention. Climate change, poverty, human rights, and the arms race were no longer issues of debate, but of urgent collective action. Inspired by the message of peace and unity that had been made manifest in Jerusalem, governments found themselves shifting towards policies that emphasized care for the environment, equality among people, and the eradication of suffering. A sense of stewardship, long absent from global political discourse, became central to the way nations viewed their role in the world. Religious institutions, which had often been divided by dogma, doctrine, and historical grievances, found themselves called to unity in the wake of the miracle. The appearance of Jesus and the angels had shown clearly that no single tradition held the monopoly on truth. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, and people of countless other faiths all recognized that the divine message transcended any one religion. Leaders of these traditions began meeting in unprecedented numbers, discussing ways to foster interfaith dialogue and cooperation. While differences in belief remained, there was a newfound respect and understanding among religious leaders. They understood that the appearance of the divine in Jerusalem was not a message of division, but of unity. Efforts to work together on issues of social justice, humanitarian aid, and the fostering of peace multiplied. Churches, mosques, synagogues, and temples began to work together in their communities, focusing on what united them rather than what divided them. The notion of interfaith cooperation, which had been gaining ground for decades, now found a firm and lasting foundation in the miracle that had been witnessed by the world. For individuals who had long struggled with their personal faith, the event sparked a renewal of spiritual exploration. Many who had turned away from religious institutions or who had been indifferent to spiritual matters began to reconsider their place in the universe. The appearance of Jesus and the angels had been a powerful reminder that life was more than a series of random events, more than a struggle for survival. It had reawakened a sense of the sacred, not just in religious practice, but in everyday life. People began to seek out ways to connect more deeply with the divine, whether through prayer, meditation, or acts of service. Meditation centers, monasteries, and retreats saw an influx of people looking for answers, not just to questions of faith, but to the questions of how to live a life of meaning and purpose. This shift wasn't limited to any one tradition. People from all faiths and backgrounds began to explore spiritual practices, searching for a way to live in alignment with the peace and love they had experienced, either firsthand or through the stories that had spread from Jerusalem. Education, too, began to change. Schools and universities, which had long focused on material success and intellectual achievement, began to incorporate teachings that reflected the new understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. Courses on spirituality, ethics, and compassion became more common, as educators recognized that the next generation would need to be prepared not just for economic and technological challenges, but for the spiritual and moral questions that now loomed large. Theologians and philosophers found themselves at the forefront of these discussions. What did the return of Jesus mean for humanity's understanding of the divine? How did it reshape the way people understood their relationship with God, with each other, and with the universe? These were questions that theologians from all traditions grappled with, and as they debated and discussed, new ideas began to emerge. One of the most profound shifts that came out of these discussions was the recognition of humanity's interconnectedness, not just with each other, but with the entire cosmos. The appearance of angels had reminded people that there were realms beyond the material world, that there was a deeper reality that connected all things. This realization began to shape philosophy and theology in profound ways. Rather than focusing solely on individual salvation or enlightenment, people began to think in terms of collective destiny, of humanity's role in the grand unfolding of the universe. As these ideas spread, they began to influence not only spiritual practice, but also science and politics. Environmental movements, which had already been growing in strength, gained new urgency as people began to see the Earth not just as a resource to be exploited, but as a sacred space that needed to be protected. Conservation efforts, previously driven by concern for future generations, were now seen as acts of stewardship, part of humanity's responsibility to care for creation. Leaders in these movements drew on the example of Jesus and the angels, who had embodied love and care for the world, to inspire people to take action. Economics, too, began to transform. The appearance of Jesus and the angels had made it clear that the accumulation of wealth and power was not the ultimate purpose of life. Instead, there was a growing recognition that economies should serve the well-being of all people, not just the few. In countries around the world, movements for economic justice gained momentum. Calls for fair wages, equitable distribution of resources, and policies that lifted people out of poverty were met with growing support. The old systems of competition and exploitation, which had dominated global markets for so long, began to give way to models based on cooperation, sustainability, and care for the most vulnerable. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the miracle in Jerusalem? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.